How can I support you today, Stuart?
Well, um, I guess I'll just start with how I'm feeling right now and move on from there.
Mm.
So, I feel a bit flat today, but I think that's because I've been working so much, um, doing some long hours, and I've been a bit ill. So I feel a bit flat,
Mm.
a bit tired. Feel good. Um, feel. I was a little interested to try and work out exactly what I was going to investigate today, work with today. So
Mm.
going back from the last session, I found that with a combination of a few things, I felt really good after the last session, and I um, had another sound therapy treatment or a sound healing treatment to give after our session too, which I found was a real challenge to get to that, but very rewarding at the same time because I was very open but felt quite tired. So um, that was really cool. Actually, it was a
Mm.
really good experience. But
Mm.
yeah, I found I was everything sort of flowed really nicely. I was in a really good mood. My approach to people had changed a little bit, so I observed all these things. Um, and then I got a little ill. I had a disagreement with a couple of ticks that didn't particularly like me, so I ended up getting pretty sick with those, and I've been recovering, which is probably why I still feel a bit tired. I had a pretty big reaction to those, and triggered a couple of other conditions that I have as well.
Mm.
So between all of that, it's yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks,
Mm.
and so culminating with me being right here, right now, and
Mm.
being feeling tired. Um, but I had a bit of a thought at about 3 o'clock this morning, and I thought I've got to write that down because I just woke up with this in mind about things make sense. This is what I want to talk about, and then I didn't write it down, completely forgotten it. It was in the haze of my thought.
Yeah, it's like a
But,
similar thing to
yeah,
when you wake up at night and you've got a great song in your head, right? And you go, "Oh, I've got to write this down." It's like, no, I'm sure I'll remember it, and then you don't.
yeah,
Mm.
yep. Or one of those conversations with you have with people, and you just can't quite remember the name of that song or
Yeah.
the name of that place, and then you just wake up and go, "Oh, I remember what it is. I've got to tell them about it," and then forget completely
Mm.
about it. Yeah,
Mm.
it's exactly what's happened. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But
Well.
yeah. But I guess what I came back to was why I'm doing these sessions
Mm.
and why I'm doing anything, why I'm doing these courses, and why all this course and the sound therapy stuff. Why am I doing this? And it's because um, I'm wanting to expand. I'm wanting to be. I'm wanting to change. I'm needing to make some changes, but I'm wanting to do that as well. Um, so that's at the crux of it, really.
So
And so,
this idea of wanting to make changes, like we spoke a little bit last time about, the physical stuff that's been going on, which has brought up a lot of stuff for you, triggered a few things for you. When it comes to those changes, is there anything in particular that you feel is not how you're wanting it to be?
yeah, and we did touch on a little bit about this last time about it being the journey, and also there's a my end goal is not necessarily how it should be now, I don't think, but in terms of what these I would like this to be or would like it to look at and what's sort of not happening. Um, I think I'm making some changes, but at the same time, I've got this thing ingrained in me that goes, I'm not doing it fast enough, or I'm not, why aren't I just doing that? Or um, um, why am I not dedicated as enough to it, so to speak? So It's interesting. I actually let go of one thing the other day when I woke up not feeling well. I emailed someone and said, right, I've been on the board of a radio station here, and I literally just wrote an email and said, right, I'm done. I resign. I haven't got time for this at the moment. So I let go of something, trying to make more space. Knowing full well that this week was going to be incredibly busy with work as well, and making demands. So in terms of the changes, it was funny because you brought up the thing about the rebellious side of me the other day, and I hadn't heard it quite like that. So that's been giving me something to think about. Is that because I feel like that was almost part of what I was thinking about changing, but you sort of identified that as a strength. So I thought about it a little bit. I was trying to work out where that actually comes from, because I went back and I've written down what I'm rebellious about. And I'm rebellious against authority. I'm rebellious against the mainstream. I'm rebel against institutionalization and institutional edicts, if you like. I always seek out things that are on the fringe. I've worked on the fringe, and I was sort of trying to work out where all this comes from. And it sort of dawned to me that I've probably had that for quite some time, as we talked about. And do I want to change that part of me? And so, well, I don't think so. Yeah, but do I therefore want to bring more of that into my life? And so that's the thing I'm also thinking about, is how do I do that without, in a way, rebelling against myself?
Well, I mean, the first thing maybe to look at is the extremes of one or the other. Like, if we would look at what would the extreme be of rebellion for you? What does that look like?
So the extreme of that rebellion would be that escapist tendency I have, which is to go, fuck it, I'm just bailing on everything, just going, just not going to work, not going to do anything, sell my stuff, just going to get out of here. That to me is kind of extreme. Yeah, that would be the extreme rebellion. And that's where I question, am I rebelling against myself, or what exactly am I rebelling about? That's where that whole question comes up for me.
Well, if you have a look at that, wanting to escape, sell everything off, screw it, I'm just going to leave. Is there anything lying underneath that? Like, what is, because then what happens then? I'm going to escape. I'm going to sell my stuff because.
Yeah, because, if I do that, I'll be sitting on a beach somewhere or in the forest somewhere. It'd be wonderful, but I'll be by myself. And it'd still be me. So I'd probably, I don't see that resolving anything, so to speak. If anything, that would be making me disconnect from a lot of everything that I know in the outside world. I guess the question from that would be whether that would allow me to connect more with myself in that respect. And therefore, the question would come up in my head, is that, am I really rebelling against myself or giving myself something to do?
Well, yeah, it could be both, right? So I'm curious around this idea of escaping, if there's an extreme of that, and also the other side of that. Like, is there more than an extreme version of the idea of escaping? There might be some positive sides of that. And what we tend to do is we tend to take a word or a way of, like escapism, and if we put that into, this is the bad bracket, escape, that's what that means, and I'm going to just put that in the bad pile. We're not allowing any movement within it. It's that kind of like saying, oh, anxiety is just bad, so I'm just going to put that in the bad pile. Well, that's not really the truth, right? There's a lot of actually anxiety that can be positive. It can be, can be motivation. It can be changed into something different. So I'm wondering if escape could be the same thing, that there could be many facets of that, but maybe you've just put it in the bad pile.
Yeah. And to think of it, yes. Interestingly, it's something I've done thinking about it. I've done it for a period of my life where I would escape and go off on a little journey for a couple of weeks. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. So I feel like my escapism has been in three forms. I think three forms, possibly, maybe more. One of them has been, I remember distinctly when I was 17 or 18 and I got fired from a job. And, it's a typical sort of 18-year-old that was a bit headstrong, thought I was pretty good, pretty cool because I played in music, played in bands, had dreadlocks, lived at the beach, that kind of vibe. And so I thought I was pretty good and I was way better than working in this shitty job. So I literally just got up and I just went for a drive around New South Wales for 3 weeks in my new Commodore. So I distinctly remember that, and that was a good experience because it forced me to be with myself. I ended up in places I'd never heard of and just doing stuff that I'd never thought of because I was 18. I didn't know as much as I thought I did. So I felt that was a good experience. The other escape is escaping quietly, in other words, to a retreat, like a meditation retreat, to places of stillness and quiet where I can just sit and reflect. In thinking about that, I don't know if that's actually escapism or whether that's expanding. Could be both. The other part of escapism was my alcohol and drug use from many years, and my avoidance of taking responsibility for my own actions and my own relationships with people and my own responsibilities, and drinking and taking drugs just to escape reality, to escape trauma.
Yeah.
To escape pain, to escape all of those things, to escape dealing with things. So, and I think the fourth bit of escape that I could think of, which probably ties into all of them really, is, my escapism as a child as well. So if I think back to it, certainly my escape was, I think, a lot to do with my relationship with my dad. And I guess hiding away from him in a way. So if I was to link that back to what I was thinking about before about my rebellious side, I think my rebellious side comes from listening to him talk about stuff, but also from my resentment of his authority from when I was younger, because he would go away for extended periods of time with work and then come back and he'd be that authoritarian figure. And so I feel like maybe that's where my rebellious side starts from.
Rebellion against him coming in, making demands.
Yeah, and my total disdain for authority. So considering that's come up again while we're talking about escapism, it feels like maybe there's that relationship between my thoughts of what escape is.
Mm. So
Yeah.
I'm curious around this last part about your childhood and escapism.
Mm.
Did that come up in any other way when you were a child? Like, did you use a form of escapism, whether that's in silence, as in retreating, or actually running away or something like that? Were there situations where you needed to use escapism in your life?
Mm. Yep. Yeah, for sure. I feel like it came about uh, in the way that I interacted with people. Um, it came about through things that I did because I was an only child as well. So I would tend to immerse myself in my own little world of projects.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, I'd literally just have all these Lego, not Lego. Well, I had lots of Lego, but I used to have a whole bunch of little cars, Matchbox cars, and I would immerse myself in playing with those for hours, or little toy horses or something like that. And this is when I was young. Um, and then I feel like after that, as I got a bit older, I'd immerse myself in um, learning about music and about and going and playing sport, where I would just escape that world of reality, and I would just go and make sure I would do that. As a teenager, that escapism then became, um, well, I can't be in the house on a weekend when my old man was there because it was just volatile. So I would always escape, and that escape would either go and play sport, and then from a really early age go out and drink beers with friends, and I'm talking like from when I was 12 years old. So, and I would do that, and that was a pattern that continued in my life up until about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you talk about volatile, like, was it violence in the home as well, as in actual violence, or was it verbal abuse?
I copped a few decent wallops. Yeah, for at times that I didn't understand as a little kid. You don't really know what you've done wrong sometimes.
Mhm.
But no, probably more. It was probably more verbal or silence, if you like. Um, I've since found out that I've learned things about my dad over the years that put it into context, and I understand, and it's kind of in a way makes me determined to never go down that path, even though there are similarities between me and my dad. There are also very, very distinct differences. Um, he's an incredibly closed man when it comes to emotions and when it comes to expressing any matters of observation about himself.
Mm.
Whereas I'll be quite the opposite to that. So, or at least I work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and if we're thinking just about the retreat aspect, that? I guess I retreated um, personally, not just with him, but I think in life,
Mm.
in some ways. Um, certainly when I hit sort of 20, 21 and everything else, that's kind of disappeared, and I, became very outgoing and was quite happy and sociable, and still am pretty sociable, and still pretty happy, still quite relaxed, and can still talk with anyone. Um, so it dissipated over time, but yeah, there were moments like I remember I used to talk a lot when I was a really young child, and then all of a sudden I just have this. I don't even remember the exact time, but I just got told to shut up because I was always talking. And I feel like that had a bit of a thing. And for a while when I was a kid, when my old man would come home and he'd be like in a really shit mood, not knowing back then what I do now about his really deep untreated depression and alcoholism, that I didn't know what that was at the time. So I think that I just felt that I couldn't talk. And so I had to escape from that.
Yeah.
Mm.
So when you were told that as you were really little to shut up, to be quiet, you talk too much, how did you respond? Did you go quiet or did you confront it?
No, I would have gone quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't fully remember.
No.
It's but
Feeling.
yeah, I reckon I went pretty quiet.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because escape is one of these things, and you've kind of brought that up here. We can do it in different ways, and into two sort of main ways that we would do it, or two categories it ends up in is we either switch ourselves off, as in remove ourselves from the situation by either going quiet or getting out of there or something like that, where we're retreating within ourselves. We do that, we switch off or we switch on. We can actually, through you talked a little bit about being around friends, drinking, forgetting about life, as in, now I'm just going to go out, I'm just going to have fun, I'm just going to screw it, who cares. Drugs, alcohol, whatever it is that it becomes like, I'm going to use these tools. So it's almost like a switching on button, as in, I'm going to go on it and just, be around people and become that other person. And both of them can be detrimental in their own right. But it's at the bottom and the core of it, it's kind of two sides of the same stick. Does that ring a bell for you at all? Does that connect at all?
Yeah, no, it does, because I think about moments where I'd go, when I was a kid, and of maybe 15 or so, and I just remember sitting in a park, probably with friends, and I would just drink a lot of beer, but we would also contemplate things. So, doing that whole thing of, why are we here? What are we doing? Does God exist? Is life any good? Why have I got life?
Mm.
All that kind of stuff.
Existential thoughts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've always had those, and that's the thing. I've always had that. So I've always had that for a young age, but I feel like what happened is when I was about 20 or 21, I remember making this I remember making this choice. I don't exactly remember why I did it at the time. I was obviously feeling something, and I shut it off. And what I shut off in me was that thing that I've kind of discovered through healing modalities now, and through other things that I've worked with over the past few years, such as various different natural medicines, practices, plants, etc. I've rediscovered that this intuition that I have, and this ability to feel and have a lot of insight. And I remember I shut that off, and it was dormant for so many years. And I sort of allowed it to come back several years ago. But I do really remember doing that, like just shutting it off.
Was there anything that happened? in the around that time, even if it wasn't exactly at that time? Had anything happened around that time that seems relevant or connected to that?
That's the part I don't really remember, whether I had a realization, whether just trying to think. I was smoking a lot of weed at the time.
Mm.
Um, I have a feeling it was around a time I broke up from a girlfriend around that time. Um, wow. Yeah, I'm not really sure if there was any major life event. Certainly, it's not coming to mind now. There may well have been. There could be something I'm really have to going to go back and have a real think about.
Mm. But that's okay.
I just I remember being sad. Um, and I remember being conflicted. And I also remember that I was doing psychology at uni at the time. So I suspect it was possibly because it was getting too deep for me to handle.
Mm.
And I just didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Did you finish the psychology?
No, no. I left uni, and then I went back and I moved into sociology and anthropology.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. That would make sense, you know, to if we have a lot of stuff that we're questioning and wondering, and you know, that there's some stuff we need to work on, and then we start reading about psychology, and it can get a bit too much
Mm.
emotionally.
Mm. It's funny how time gives us an experience gives us a different perspective, because
Mm.
now I look at I read psychology and look at psychology in such a different way now.
Mm.
Um, Mainly thanks to the fact that I've gone and done anthropology and everything else. So I interpret things differently to what, you know, in psychology that a lot of people probably do,
Mm.
which I consider to be a strength now.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, at the time I feel like it would have been too much. So I feel like I had to, at that time, it felt like it was a conscious choice to hide that part of me away.
Mm. And did it work?
No, it was a silly idea. Well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I don't know. In hindsight, to be honest, I really wish I'd never done that,
Okay. Did
because
it serve you
knowing,
in the moment though?
hindsight. Sorry,
Did it serve you in the moment?
matter of perspective, isn't it?
Mm.
Um, may have done for a short period.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of me allowing me to be and to grow and to expand,
Mm.
it was like I only let an element of me grow and expand and connect, but I kept the rest of it away.
Yeah.
And if I then look back on, if I look back on, relationships and interactions and friendships after doing that, I can see how elements of that would pop up. But it was like, because I had that disconnect, that flow of knowledge wasn't there. So I knew there was something.
Mm.
And so I would just come out with like an assumption or a statement or do something going, well, I know that's what it is, but then just not be able to explain it, not be able to frame it properly, not do it in the right context. And so I think that probably affected most of the way that I had friendships, relationships, acquaintances.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, and in turn, the way that I also viewed them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it probably hurt other people. In fact, I know it hurt other people. So, in that respect, no, it didn't serve at all.
And still, right, if we choose to do something like that, we do it. And if we keep doing it, if we keep choosing to do it on some level, I mean, it's easy now, right? Because you're looking at it from an adult mind. You've got perspective.
Mm.
You've got the luxury of
Yeah.
perspective. And that time you
Mm.
didn't have that luxury. You were in a situation that was probably very different from now. So I would argue that it did serve you somehow because you kept doing it, and I'm curious how it served you.
In one way, it allowed me to function on a level where I was able to have friends, to socialize, to not feel pain, to protect myself. You know, if I didn't let people get too close emotionally, and I guess I'm talking about, you know, romantic partners especially here. If I didn't let them get too close to me, then, um, or me get too attached, more to the point, um, then I wouldn't get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
So if you think about that, right,
mm,
it makes you function. It helps you
yeah,
socialize. It helps you not
mm,
feel pain, and it helps to protect you. If you didn't know
mm,
what that was, and I'm gonna give something to you that helps you socialize, keeps you functioning, helps you not feel pain, and helps you to protect yourself. It's quite intriguing, right?
mm,
So it makes sense that you kept doing that.
mm, yeah,
And it
yeah,
kind of makes sense that you would sometimes keep doing that because it's a pattern that you've been using for a long time.
mm,
And when you're in a situation where there's a lot of pain or potentially a lot of pain, you want to protect yourself. And that's my go-to. So
mm,
I'm going to escape. Which one am I going to choose? Am I going to do the social part, escape that way? Or am I gonna hide and go into myself, or what? Which one am I gonna choose? The internal or external? How am I gonna? But I'm gonna find a way to escape because it works for me.
mm, mm. And it did, and it allowed me to connect in some way
Mm,
with others.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm. Not fully, but it allowed me to connect.
yeah, yeah. Look,
Mm.
I'm not saying it's perfect, right? Because you know that that formula and what you did and what might still come up in your life at times. It's not perfect
Mm.
because there's another side to it. When you switch yourself off like that, I mean, an obvious one is you can't connect deeply with people because there's a
Mm.
part of you that wants to protect themselves because they're afraid of getting hurt. And if we're afraid to get hurt, we will close our heart just a little bit, just to make sure that
Mm.
we're not going to be too vulnerable.
Mm.
What else is the negative?
Makes a lot of sense.
Could you find another sort of
Yeah,
negative
that makes.
aspects of sort of that idea of um closing yourself off.
Mm. Um, are we thinking about around that time, or are we thinking about sort of
We're thinking
more
about
about now?
we're thinking about now.
Okay, now, yeah. Look, the aspect of now, um, or perspective from now, I can see a positive,
Mm-hmm.
and the positive is the fact that because I closed myself off for so long, gives me the opportunity to open and be open, and going through this process of being more open and vulnerable, which I started a little while ago.
Yeah.
Uh, to me, that's a positive because it's provided me that opportunity and it's provided me with that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the negative, I guess, is that I didn't get to experience that full, deeper level of connection and intuition and wisdom that I know I've always had, but I didn't get to connect. I didn't get to display that, and I probably didn't get to allow people to see that for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So yeah. So if I get sort of, I guess my natural inclination is to bring things to where I can get most growth, where what's an opportunity for growing. It seems to be like my natural default mode's kind of an interesting way of putting it, but it is in a way. Is that I'll get these little snippets of, oh wow, that's how it felt to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how it felt to close myself off for so long, and really just sit in that for a while, and then go, well, how can I learn from that? How can I grow from that? Um, yeah, and for me, I guess that sort of learning comes from learning, I guess, to be seen and to be open and to embrace that. And that if there is sadness that I'm feeling, because there's sadness that I'm feeling from having blocked that off for so long. Even though no doubt in that time period I had fun as well. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot of fun, but yeah, there's that element that I just shut off for so long that it's, for me now, it's a wonderful opportunity to shed that even further.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. And to be happy being seen and being more open
Mm.
and being vulnerable, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. Um, I think with that probably comes a recognition that it's okay for me to let other people get to know me as well. Mm. So not only myself getting to know myself, but letting other people in.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing that you bring up. Um, this sort of inner work that we do and the industry that you're walking into. It's yes, we connect deeply with people. We do a lot of inner work on ourselves, but it can also become quite a singular one road for you, and you are getting to know
Mm.
a lot of other people because that's your job. You're supporting others, so you get to know them. But there's that other part, which is the big one, the connection. You know, it's building the muscle of connection, building back the ability to be open and connect with, whether that's your friends, family, community, where it's all about unity and not about, you know, the you doing the work yourself.
Yep. I can, sitting with that for a moment, is this realization, because I know in this course we talk about we need to be doing the inner work ourselves in order to be able to support others. I find that with the sound therapy stuff that I do and the sound healing stuff that I do. And I know I can connect with people on that level, on multiple levels. And the main, well, not the main reason, but a big part of why I'm really not just doing that work and not just doing my own work, but is because I can see that there is a benefit that is greater than just me and greater than just the person that I'm working with, but there is a greater benefit to allowing people to open. And in that way, I'm also allowing myself to open.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling that this at the moment is a really core piece of why I'm doing the courses. I've chosen these fields to move into, and that I'm sitting here in this session with you. This is a core part of it, is being able to be seen, to allowing myself to be seen, to working on a way that allows me to be seen, to be open, so that I can also do that with others and for others.
Mm-hmm.
Many people or several people that I would consider mentors have always said to me that, this isn't about us, this isn't about you, this isn't about me, this is about everything else that's going on. This is about, there's a connection that is most definitely beyond just what we see and how we interact on a one-to-one basis. And that's something I understand as well. But for me, it's requiring me to just literally just be open.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that world that you're creating, and your studies and your work and everything, like your inner work, all that sort of stuff, it feels like it's all kind of conglomerating and sort of fits together, all the different parts, for growth, really? That's what you're doing. Do you feel like that is do you feel that part of you is separate to another part of you that you play? For example, when you're around friends or when you're around living life, or do you feel like it's all the same? Can you be that person everywhere, is what I'm trying to say.
That is a wonderful question. That's a wonderful question. It's one I've asked myself. It's something that I'm attempting to resolve. Can I be that person that I know I am, that I am inherently in my interactions, or that other side of me, because there is another side. Like if I think about it, some of the work, and this is where my anthropology mind kicks in too, is because I've got this idea of work, and we're social actors. We've got these life roles, and we play out a role in accordance to what is being dictated to us at the time, or those little, whatever those choices are that are presented to us, we pick one of those and play a role. And I'm very conscious that that's what I do when I go and do one or two of my other jobs, for example, is that I do play a role. What I'm attempting to do is bring in the growth that I'm undertaking into those roles. However, I feel like they almost work against where I'm heading.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interactions with drunk people, for example, and this is not a judgment on anyone. This is more just a fact from where I am, is that, for example, if I'm surrounded by drunk people, it's stifling. I find it stifling, and I find it really negative, and I find it very difficult to allow that person, which is this me that I'm expanding as, to be in those situations.
Mm.
So yeah, in those contexts, I try. With my friends, well, I've got substantially less social acquaintances than I did, say, 3, 4, 5 years ago. I'm trying to bring this into my social world, my interactions with people. So yeah, I feel like it's something that's also growing along with what I'm doing.
Mm. Yeah. I think there's a saying, I think it would have been the Dalai Lama or something, I can't remember who it was, but said that if, I think it relates to us so much. If you think you're holy, go and spend a day with your family. And it's kind of, that's kind of the truth, right? Like we think, oh, I've got this, I can do this, like I've got this worked out, I've done my work, and then you're chucked into a situation which is, brings you right back to reality and go, no, still got work to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of that, maybe that's the journey, maybe that's the thing, maybe it's all about finding yourself, no matter what the situation looks like or who we're around, becoming ourselves. And yes, we can choose to tone down certain parts of ourselves if it's a conscious choice. That's totally okay, right? We can play some of those games, but I think maybe the quest is to try and to work towards finding comfort in all of those situations. Maybe when we're triggered in those scenarios, that's the greatest lessons of all of them, because it's easy to be holy, to feel content and good about our own development when we're surrounded by people who are doing the same thing as us. The challenge is when we step out of that world, and it's that can, for some people, that's a lot. Which is why a lot of people retreat. They hide away. Whilst I think that's the whole thing. That's our job, to do the work, to help others. We have to walk into the market. We can't do it from the top of our balcony looking down at people. We've got to, we're not holier or greater than any. It's getting that being comfortable with that, which is the work. That is the inner work.
It's funny you say that, because on one person who I consider to be a mentor. We used to, when we would do our long sessions of of plant medicine, the part of the integration, because we do this over a week, and instead of calling it a retreat, you'd call it, it'd be something else, be an expansion rather than a retreat. And part of what the integration, not that we really use those words too much, but that word was, okay, well, once you're done there, you've got to cook yourself some soup for dinner. And when you're literally, it's like you're in a different dimension. So all of a sudden you've got, hang on, I've got hands again. How do I do with this? Yeah, it was a full integration. It's like, you're in this state, but now you've got to be in this state.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you're saying that. And I remember that I used to, especially when I was drinking, I would often be the observer. So I would be sitting there and I'd be just drinking, and I'd be watching other people rather than just really interacting and being in it. I'd watch. And part of that, I feel like, comes from being an anthropologist, but anthropologists can also be participant observers. Whereas I would just let myself be the observer.
Yeah.
Which, thinking about that, was actually just part of my way of hiding.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. When framing it in this context, yes, it is. Yeah. It's just another way that the way of my socializing and the way of my interactions were, had been so framed, which then gives me another perspective on how I interact with people now. And I'm sort of I'm feeling like since I got sick about 8-10 weeks ago, I'm not even counting, to be honest. It's just when I got sick, a couple of months ago, and whenever it was, that's when I just completely gave up. Even the minimal amount of alcohol that I drank, I just gave up. And I noticed immediately how the social situations that I was in didn't feel right to me. And it shone a torch on how I socialized with people and what my interactions with people were predicated on. And since then, I've also been able to see, look at why was I talking and interacting with people in this way? Are these people that I wish to be friends with or friendly with? In other words, just go, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good. Or actually sit and spend time with. And so it made me really understand that there's that's going on as well. And that it wasn't necessarily, what choice was I making previously and what choice am I making now? Am I choosing to be open and connected with these people, or am I not? Or, as you were saying, is it possible just for me to be that across the board and just be totally fine either way? It's like, here I am, this is me.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, right? I wonder what would happen if you would allow yourself to remove just temporarily, maybe not forever, but what would happen if you would decide to just remove all escapism buttons that you have, all your buttons that you can flick? Because you already started to remove some of them. Like, you've got the alcohol, the drugs, there's a lot of them that you're already removed. I wonder what would happen if you would just allow to remove them. If you notice a button flick, the flick switch going, that's another escape. I'm just gonna switch that off, and I'm just gonna be very present with what I'm feeling. It's like, now I'm doing the laundry. And I'm gonna be present doing this laundry, even though it pains me to do this laundry, I'm doing this now. I'm not escaping. I'm not switching off. Wonder what would happen if you would, for a short period of time, remove your escapism buttons.
Having been really, I've gradually been doing that. So you're right, yeah, and I have been for a while.
Yes.
And it's, yeah, but if we're looking at, say, some of those situations where, you know, there would be times where I'd be like, oh, I can't wait to finish now. I can't wait to be not here.
Yeah, but that's okay,
yeah.
because the thing is to not escape from that place would be, I'm feeling that I really don't want to be here right now, and it's uncomfortable to feel that feeling right now, and I can feel that in my stomach, or I can feel that, and I'm noticing that right now, and now I'm making a choice as of what to do next. So that's what we're talking about. It's not like I'm going to switch this now, I'm out of it. It's I'm feeling this right now, and that's really uncomfortable for me, and I'm noticing how that's uncomfortable for me, and that's okay, and I'm just going to give that some space.
So effectively sit there going, yes, I know I feel. I'll use an example of just being at a particular job or a work situation that I'm doing, where I sit there and go, okay, I'm feeling that I really don't want to be here. I can feel that this is uncomfortable. I feel this is really not what I want to be doing. I'd much rather be home, studying or playing my crystal bowls, but I'm actually here, and literally just working through that at that moment until the end of that shift.
Yeah. Because what you're doing, if you're not doing that, is you're literally trying to, when you're having a dream and you're trying to run away from something, but you're not moving, as in you're running and you're running, but you're standing in the same spot, but you're not getting anywhere. That's kind of what you're doing, right? It's like, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be here, but I'm still at the same spot, and oh, thank God, now I can go, and now I'm home, or now I woke up. And now, so what we're doing is we're kind of like, we're accepting, this is what's going on for me right now, and I'm noticing this right now, and I notice how painful this is for me, and I'm just going to give that space. I'm not gonna, it's okay, it's okay, I've got this, it's okay, I'm noticing this, and it's okay.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. That's a I was going to call it an experiment, but it's not an experiment. Yeah. It's an activity that I'm going to do.
Well, you can call it an experiment if you want. You can notice, you can put your analytical mind on if you want. That's okay. That's fine. You can play with this. I know you're rebellious. If I tell you to do something, you're gonna, screw you, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this instead. So you do it the way you want it, right?
Far out. Yeah, it's true though. It's true. Yeah.
Did I read your mind?
Yeah. Oh, look, I think, oh no, how am I going to do this? The other part of the thing that just flashed on my head is like, I'm going to take my notebook in with me, and just in the middle of doing something with someone, I just go, excuse me for a moment. I just going to need to make some field notes on what I'm actually doing right now.
Exactly. I want you to just have some fun with this, right? Just experiment with this. Have some fun with this. And let's just watch what happens. You notice your body changing? Do you notice that you've been moving around? It's like something's just shifted. You've been doing a lot of movements, as we spoke about. Been
doing it the whole session. Yeah. Yeah.
Just notice it right now. It became very, very prominent at the moment. Yeah.
Yep. And it's also I don't feel as tired as I did an hour ago either. Yeah. But no, I was conscious of that because I noticed the way that I was sitting, and the way that I moved.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely something shifted. Yeah, this is interesting. My typical analytical brain's going, oh, this could be interesting. This could be fun.
Yeah.
You know, what's going to happen with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Mm, beautiful.
yeah. Well, thank you for the homework. It's additional to the study.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'll write that one down. No, yeah, it's amongst like you when now you're sort of, I keep thinking of and seeing scenarios over the past couple of days, for example, where I feel like I've actually been on this path anyway, but I probably needed this little kick up the backside just to actually bring that out even more. I've noticed a few things the way that I've reacted to people or said something to people or
Mm,
just, and I've done it and then consciously gone, hang on, that's the one thing that that's one of the things you're trying to change.
hmm.
So,
Well, I'm not
yeah,
bringing anything up. Nothing comes into this conversation unless it comes from you, right? So that makes total sense.
yeah,
That's came out for you today because
mm,
that's what you've
yeah,
brought in energetically, and where and the beautiful thing with these conversations is that it brings it to the surface, and you might get a new perspective on it, or you'll get new words around it and go, oh my God, yes, this is where I'm going. um
yeah,
so it's great. That just means that you've it's just expanded on where you're at.
yeah. And as I look through my journaling from the last couple of days, last week or two actually, since our last session, there's things about um, about being authentic, about being seen, allowing people to
Mm.
see me, to get closer to me, to know me. So I've written a lot of this out. Um, yeah, and a big word, big one, two, three, four mentions of rebellion, rebellious in 2 pages. So there you go. So that was a
Yeah.
good word you brought up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm, yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Madelaine.
Thank you.